All right, so you see on the screen that there is, do you use a cycle menu now? Yes, no, or you're not sure. And so if you could answer that so we get an idea of what everyone is doing here. I'll give you a couple more seconds to choose and record your answer. We've got about 20 attendees and about 17 of you have voted. So if the rest of you may or may not have the opportunity. All right, we are going to go ahead and end polling. So let's look at the results here. Looks like we have, you guys could be teaching this class, it appears to me, because over 70% of you are using cycle menus right now. So that is fabulous. Three things that I would encourage those of you who are using a cycle menu right now to consider as we move through the presentation are, I want you to really think about the length of your cycle menu. Look at the number of menu items you are using and see if you can whittle that down by using a food item multiple times. That certainly saves on freezer space. And go through and identify how many USDA donated foods are on your menus. Now, those of you who are thinking about building a cycle menu, welcome. You are in the right place. So glad you are here. And I think by the end of this presentation, you are going to have the tools and skills you need to get started and complete a cycle menu for 2021. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to let you guys figure out how to get the PowerPoint going. I am just going to stay on video, or so you can't take the computer because I need it for video. So, but you can play with it while I'm talking, as long as I can do the volume. Okay. So, so what if I told you I could save you a ton of time? Kids could have variety. You could utilize all your USDA donated food dollars and you wouldn't have a ton of inventory on hand. Would you be interested in that? Absolutely. It's like, sign me up. So when planning a cycle menu, 5 things that typically you want to consider. One of those is complying with USDA meal pattern requirements, of course. Evaluating how you can use your current inventory that is sitting on your shelves or in your freezers. What USDA donated food you said you were going to use when you did your survey earlier this year. Student preference, and making sure that you aren't putting foods that you really need to use up on days that end up being holidays or non-school days. So we're going to talk about each of these things in depth as we move through the presentation. And so we expect that we are going to, I'll get some, the screen up a little bit for you, but I want you to think about the meal pattern. And right now we're looking, I'm trying to work on the breakfast meal pattern to begin with. So if you're new to the program, you might want to dig into this meal pattern information after the presentation. But I do want to remind you of the daily minimum and weekly requirements for the daily and minimum requirements of the grains on the breakfast meal pattern. So remember that when you're we have to do 1 a day, and we have to have 7 to 9 throughout the week. Number 6. Oh, goody. Thank you. So the school breakfast meal pattern, again, you can see that up on your screen. In the under that red is where we've got our daily and weekly requirements for that grain. Another thing that you might want to think about too, some schools will do just one breakfast menu. And so that might be something that you consider as you're doing a cycle menu, is that for breakfast, if you decide that you are going to write just one menu, you need to follow grades K through 8 when you're doing that, because those have the calories and the minimum and max calories that meet all grade groups. So in the chat right now, tell me, when you do your breakfast program, are you writing just one menu or are you writing multiple menus? And so give me a little bit of feedback on that so that I know what you're doing as you're writing those menus. So are you writing a K5 menu? Are you writing a K8 menu? And then a separate one for grades 9, 12? What are you doing at this point? And I'll kind of share some of those answers. That one so far, and they're telling us that what are they doing? They're writing one menu. Okay, who else is type those answers into, you're going to look for your chat box, and when you move your, oh, I see a few more people coming in. Everybody is writing one menu. Okay, we've got somebody doing, Andrea's doing a second one. So got a couple more that are just doing one. So for the most part, everybody is doing one. So here is your lunch meal pattern. This is no different than anything else that you have seen. Again, we're looking at those daily and weekly minimum and maximums that we're going to have, and we'll be considering those when we put our cycle menu together, and of course then our vegetable subgroup. So one of the things that we think about, especially at this time, is what's on your shelves right now? What's in your freezer? So typically, in a typical year, of course, you know that in May or during the month of May, you've done a lot of Chef's Choice, and you have kind of emptied out what's on your shelves and what's in your freezers. But once school went remote learning in March, some of you, that may have left some of you with food on your shelves and in your freezers. So that's something that you're definitely going to want to consider as you're writing these cycle menus and finding ways to use that product up before you order any more in. Of course, one of the most important things that a menu planner can do is to utilize your USDA donated food items. This is the survey that you typically fill out sometime in February, and we're going to go through how to best utilize your USDA donated foods a little bit later in the presentation. Student preference. Do you know what the kids really like? Have you asked them? Have you done taste testing with them? Oftentimes we think we know our students really well, and we do, but there are things that unless we've actually gone through and done some taste testing with them and identified what student preference is, that may change what we're putting on our menus. And the other piece that plays a role in how much food you will serve, and maybe a little bit of a aha that you take away from this presentation is, for those of you who have written cycle menus and you become frustrated because you have menued an item and then you end up with a lot of it left in inventory. You're thinking, why? How did that happen? You can't figure out what's going on. The school calendar may hold some of the answers to this problem, and I'm going to talk to you about how to make sure that you are maximizing the food that you want to make sure that you're using a lot of throughout the year. Just a few definitions. So cycle menu, obviously, you're going to hear me say this more than once during this presentation, is that I am really going to strongly encourage you to keep it really simple this year. I would really suggest that you write no more than a 2-week cycle menu to begin with. And I know you're thinking, oh my gosh, that's ridiculous. But what I want you to think about is, because things are so uncertain, that you may need to move quickly from a cafeteria menu to a remote feeding. And so I'm just going to suggest that you write a menu that might be able to meet both of those scenarios, so that it's not quite as stressful on you and the kids. You know, one thing that we've really found is that during all of this, school meals have really provided a bit of comfort for these kids. They like being able to, when school went remote and people were feeding, they were so comforted to get some of the foods that they recognize that they typically got at school. And so to say, we've always known how important school meals are, but I think the rest of the nation is also finding out during this time. So again, let's just really keep things simple, at least to begin with. You know, we can make it more complex. We can go, but let's, especially thinking through October and maybe even November, I would just really strongly encourage you to just think about paring that menu down to a 2-week cycle menu. Average daily participation, of course, that's the number of meals that you serve in a day. We're going to talk about why that's important, especially when it comes to forecasting and procurement. The forecasting, you know, we've talked about identifying usages in advance. So this becomes really important, so that as you're, you know, think about your USDA donated food survey that we do in February. Nobody in February is thinking about what we're going to be doing the next year. However, as a menu planner, you really have to be doing that. So by taking a cycle menu and working on that piece so that you can know, even by February, what you might be doing is a great thing. So you don't have to necessarily be able to know everything. They're not seeing that, right?
No.
Okay.
They see what they were seeing your notes
Okay.
before.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Well, so then we've got forecasting. Again, we really want to be able to, that's one of the things that those of you who are obviously already writing the cycle menu know, is that once you kind of have that set, that's going to be a great tool, so that when you're filling out your USDA donated food surveys, you have a really good idea of how much you're going to need, which in turn helps the state out when they have to bring food in. And obviously USDA donated food, that definition is just food that's received from USDA. Some people still refer to this as commodities. That's where sometimes those words are a little interchangeable. I would just encourage you to get used to the USDA donated food piece. So let's go ahead and start writing a cycle menu for breakfast. Again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on meal patterns right now, but we know this is what it looks like. Here is just a simple template that I use when I write my cycle menus. You can do this on paper. You can do this in an Excel document. You can do this in Word, whatever you're most comfortable with. I write the days of the week across the top and the food components along the left-hand side. Way up in the corner, I obviously write cycle menu 1 or cycle menu week 2, whatever that is. But again, I'm going to really push you to just consider doing a just this 2-week cycle menu. Another one of the reasons that I'm really pushing that we simplify things is we don't know what food availability is going to be. We just really don't know what the food supply is going to look like. So if we have a simplified menu, a cycle menu, chances are better that you're going to have to do a little less substituting. For instance, I've been watching Smucker Uncrustable Market. So Smucker's has already said that they're going to have a hard time keeping up with demand once school starts. So you can imagine a pre-wrapped sandwich has been in high demand over the last few months nationwide as schools have been doing so much remote service. At one of the vendors over the last few weeks, I've been watching the inventory supply. Notice that strawberry and peanut butter Uncrustables, like in the 2.6 ounce, which is 1 meat, 1 grain, has been in supply. However, both sizes of the grape jelly and peanut butter Uncrustable have been out. The smaller one was back in stock yesterday when I looked, and the larger one's delivery date has been pushed back out a week again. So these are the things that I think that you're going to have to prepare yourself for this year. It's no different than when you've gone to the grocery store and gone grocery shopping the last few months. Store shelves have bare places, bare spots on them where there's just some foods that are in short supply or that we've not been able to purchase at all. And so again, I think that we just want to be really thinking about keeping keeping the simple and back to basics. So let's look at when I start writing a cycle menu, I always just start with the grain. There's no right or wrong place to start. You can certainly write milk across the bottom and you can do the fruits if you want, but typically I imagine or visualize a dinner plate in front of me and I always start with my main item. And so that's how I'm going to share how I build my cycle menus. So I am putting in that grain item first. So you can see that I have listed some of those. How do you know if a grain item meets meal pattern requirements? Obviously, you know that you need either a CN label or a product formulation statement. Here is a CN label example. You're all from, most of you are familiar with this, but that you've got to have that CN label or you've got to have this product formulation statement. And so the most important part of the product formulation statement, you can see that it's asking if the product meets the whole grain rich criteria, but really this is the part, the second half or the bottom half of the product formulation statement. It shows the total creditable amount of the whole grain that you're serving. It's been signed by someone who is supposed to be important, so they have a title. In this case, R&D Technical Support Manager. Who knows if that, but it's a title and it's dated. So those are the kind of things that when the state comes in and does a review, they're going to ask to see, and you have to be able to have this information readily available, because that's how you're saying, yes, indeed, this food component or this particular product meets the requirements for a meal pattern. The other piece that we look at is, I filled in the first, so that first piece there is the grain item. Now we know that when we start working on a breakfast meal pattern, that we first have to have 1 ounce grain equivalent before we can add anything else. The breakfast menu pattern allows us to offer a meat alternate, but not until we have at least offered 1 grain. We also know, according to the breakfast meal pattern, that we have to meet 7 to 9 grain equivalents over the course of a week. So that's why I put in that second box or column, if you will, so that I can add my other grain, or in this case, I usually like to put a meat alternate in there if I can. We all know that the breakfast meal pattern is very carb heavy, and trying to get pieces of protein in there is a great opportunity. Keeps the kids from crashing a little by mid-morning, and so getting a little bit of protein in is a great opportunity if you're able to do that. So typically that sausage and gravy pizza is going to be 1 grain. The cereal is going to be another. Banana mini loaf is another one. Cinnamon roll, maybe 1 or 2 ounce equivalents. How would you know that? Well, your product formulation statement would tell you how that's going to credit. Same thing with the pancake on a stick. That's usually going to count for 1. So we can see that we at least have 5, maybe 6 grains offered just by filling in that first grain column. We know, though, that we need 8 for those 8 to 9. So that's where we are adding in that mozzarella stick, the yogurt, and the other cheese stick. Now, one thing that you should also know is you don't have to put in a meat alternate there. You certainly can put in another grain, and that would be fine as well. So you can do whatever you want to do there. But typically, when I'm doing that, I'm trying to offer another grain, or sorry, a protein.
Janelle, I have a question.
Oh, I've got one question.
Can yogurt be the main part of breakfast or just as a meat alternative?
Great question. So they're asking if yogurt can be the main part of the breakfast or just an option. So you have to offer some type of a grain first on the menu before you can put yogurt in. So again, think about the meal pattern. We have to put in, as you're writing or planning your menus, you have to put a grain in first and then add the yogurt. So the simple answer is no, yogurt cannot be there by itself. You have to put a grain in first. Other questions? Go ahead and write those in the chat. We're going to move on and keep asking questions as they come up. That's great. So here is the rest of the cycle week 1 menu. I have what I want to talk about juice a little bit. So in this particular scenario, you know that juice cannot make up more than 50% of your fruit offering. So in this scenario, we have juice pudding. We've always put a juice on. You are not required to list the specific flavor. I always just did that because I had a larger school district, and so when I was going out to bid, I specifically bid on a certain number of cases of a certain flavor of juice. You know, you may not need to do anything with that. It's fine as you're writing your menu to just put juice as a placeholder. Remember, one thing is that to think about when you're doing a cycle menu is that the cycle menu is not your published menu. So the cycle menu is simply, again, we could just have juice in there, and you wouldn't have to put what kind of juice it is until you put that published menu out there for your students. And of course, some of you just put juice on your published menu, and that's fine as well. That's not a problem. But I just, so there is no right or wrong. I just listed it that way. One thing I do want to mention to you though is you notice that this menu does not have orange juice. There's an orange tangerine, but there is no orange juice. If you've looked at the price of orange juice, for some reason, it is substantially higher than other juices. So I took that off of my menus and I don't offer it. The only time I would offer it is if it came in through my USDA donated foods, which it happens to be on that order blank right now. And so that's how I would bring it in. Otherwise, I don't offer it because it's more expensive. So here we go with our cycle week 2 menu. Again, I've gone through and listed my grain. Now you'll see it says 1 Mozzie breadstick. So this is some kind of a breadstick, kind of like and it's stuffed with cheese. So it's kind of almost like a pizza or, you know, type product that's there. So there is a grain offering in that. And then I've also gone through and added my extra grain / meat alternate. Again, I always do protein. That's not something that you have to do. That's just how I, as the menu writer, chose to do that. And now we're going to look at finishing off our menu. In this scenario, you'll notice that we have juice 4 times, and then I've also highlighted the canned fruit there. So again, if knowing that we can only use juice as 50% of our fruit offering, I want you to remind you that if you're not draining your peaches and pears and you're serving the juice along with that, that has to be counted towards your weekly requirement. So in this case, we're offering the, we did not drain the peaches and pears. That's not what I was planning to do. So I would have to count the juice as part of my weekly requirement. Any questions as we go through that part? So when you're looking at building your cycle menu, any cycle menu, a good rule of thumb is to make sure that you use all of your entitlement of USDA donated food dollars. So you need to at least plan to put 1 donated food item on each daily menu, working up to 2 to 3 per menu if possible. Each,
Another question.
oh, so hang on one second.
What ounces of juice is offered?
So those juices that were being offered were 4-ounce juices, half cup. And we know that in the breakfast menu that we have to offer 1 cup of fruit. So I do mine in half cup servings. So I offer part of it juice, and then I offer part as another. Let me just pop back there. So you can see that on Mondays, I'm doing a fresh fruit and then craisins. So together that equals 1 cup. The 4-ounce, the apple juice is 4 ounces. The fresh fruit is a half a cup. So you can, a lot of times we don't think about using our USDA donated foods at breakfast as much as we do at lunch. But I want to really push you to, especially there's so many of you on here that are already have a cycle menu in place. And so I want you to take a look at that cycle menu and see, are you utilizing some of that USDA donated food money in your breakfast menus? Now, obviously, depending on your situation, sometimes we don't serve as many breakfasts as we do lunch. So there's not as great an opportunity to serve as large a numbers, obviously, and go through as much money, if you will, at breakfast than we do at lunch with our commodities, our USDA donated food dollars. So in this particular menu, what I've done is under that second grain item is I have offered a grilled egg patty and a cheese slice. Both of those are commodity items. And the Colby cheese omelet is a commodity item. So we're using up a little bit of that. One thing that I would suggest that you do, if you have, put this in the chat box, if you will, how many of you are going to be using favors dollars this year? So are you, when you filled out your survey back in February, you said, yep, I want to get favors dollars. And so will you just write in the chat and let me know how many of you are planning to utilize favors dollars this year? And as we're getting that information, I'm going to report on that. But one way to really maximize the seasonality of fresh fruits at the beginning of the school year and take advantage of USDA favors dollars is to offer both only fresh fruit at breakfast through November or up to November.
8 yeses, 2 nos.
8 yeses, 2 nos. So a majority of you are doing, do have favors dollars. So you can, we have to offer a cup of fruit. So why not offer 2 fresh fruit options? I know a lot of us are just really in the habit of having a fruit juice for them because they want something to drink, because they may not drink the milk. But we run a business, and sometimes we have to make business decisions. And so while we do consider student preference, we also have to be responsible and make financially sound decisions for our programs. And in this situation, this might be one of those more financially sound decisions. Now, it's not that you can't offer more fruit than than 1 cup. But remember, you also need to put that in and figure that in with your calories and sodium for the day. And the person who's doing your point of sale also needs to recognize, what does a reimbursable meal look like? So the more items that you're doing, sometimes it makes it a little more complex for your person at point of sale. And like I said, it's fine, but I would just do 2 fresh fruits between the first day of school and the end of October, if possible. That's really going to give you a great opportunity to use up some of your favors money. And I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but this was a mistake that I made as a food service director years back, which was I took my favors dollars, I divided it by 9, since there's 9 months of school, and that was what my goal was to spend, was that much money every month. Well, what happened? Shoot, I just had so much money left at the end of the year. I wasn't able to spend it all. And so what I have learned, and now my practice has been, is that I use favors dollars exclusively. That's the only fruit or vegetables that I order at the beginning of the school year, and I burn through that money just as quick as I can. And I'll tell you why. Number one, there is so much fabulous fruit, especially fruit, available when we go back to school, and those kids may not get all of that all the time. So being able to get, gosh, there's so much stone fruit. There's plums, there's peaches. There's always, in South Dakota, where we get into that apple and orange rut in the winter time, being able to offer the kids lots of this fresh fruit at the beginning of the school year is really a treat for them. And also is that exposure piece that's so important as part of what we do with our school lunch program. So again, I'm just going to suggest that you look at doing that. So as the menu planner, again, writing this cycle menu, you're going to you can do what I did, which is fresh fruit. You don't have to put what kind you're offering, just know that you're putting a placeholder in for fresh fruit. Then when you get ready to look at your put your published menu out, you can look and see what's been available on the favors order blank and write something specific in if you want to, or it can just be listed as fresh fruit on your published menu as well. Then when you get to the canned fruit piece, offer that November through April. Now, certainly you can offer juices then too, but there is a lot of canned fruit available through Brown Box. And so I would encourage you to use that as well. That's one way that you know that the canned fruit that you are purchasing, it meets the Buy American regulation. And so that's less paperwork potentially for you if something ends up coming from China or Thailand, those types of things. So think about that piece. Just want to just talk a little bit more about USDA donated food dollars, because it really is so important that you're using those. Typically, 20% of your food costs are accounted with USDA food dollars, and it's really important that you have a plan for how you're going to utilize that money. And the perfect way to plan that is using your is to do that with your cycle menu. So here's the home page of the CANS office. There is a little menu bar up in that left-hand corner that you'll see. This is the fastest way I found to get to the ICANN website other than bookmarking it. But you've got that menu, you get a drop-down menu of an A to Z index. You click on ICANN, and then you log into your account. So this looks familiar to you. This is the survey page in ICANN. Most likely you have filled out 3 different surveys. Some of you may have done 4, but it just becomes easier and easier to utilize those donated food dollars once you have that cycle menu in place. And knowing that this survey has to be filled out typically in January and February. How many of you have, I know I used to do this as a director. I'd think, how in the world am I going to know in February what you want me to use next year? I don't have a clue. I'm still just trying to get through this year. Well, a cycle menu is really that perfect opportunity to do something like that. So having a placeholder for how much ground beef do I think I'm going to use? Obviously, past history is a place for that, but as we go through this presentation, you're going to see how this cycle menu is going to give you a better opportunity to be able to really dial in and know what you want to use, and again, make it available so that you're using all that money. Here is just one thing that I just want to bring to your attention, and I know that you know this, but this is that processed. So there's brown box items, and then we get into the area of the order where, you know, the chicken tangerine is, and our chicken patties and our chicken nuggets and that sort of thing. So sometimes this is also a place where you think, my gosh, I've been buying and buying and buying, but my dollar amount isn't going down. Well, that's because when it comes to items like this, our dollar amount doesn't go down very quickly. Let's look at in the middle there, the chicken tangerine. Kids love that, right? We know they love that. But look at the amount of USDA food value that you're using per case, $16.48. The processing fee for that is $96.08. So while you may be buying cases and cases of this, when you're only using less than $17 a case every time, that's not going to make your entitlement dollars go down very much. Same thing with that chicken patty up on the top. For every case you order in, you're using $40 worth of your entitlement dollars, and the processing fee for that is $40.87. Keep in mind those processing fees, which are highlighted in orange, that's a bill that you receive separately for that process fee. So that has to be added on to when you're thinking of food costs and that sort of thing. That's part of that. So while we think that, sometimes you get it into your head that the USDA donated foods are, and I'm doing air quotes even though you can't see me, free food. It's not free. And so it's, like I said, you have to be very strategic about how you use this. And then here's the piece in the survey where you have put down how much of the favors money, or if you're choosing to use favors money or not. Here is again, this is a piece off the CANS website. The very bottom there is how you get onto the food distribution page. And they have listed the 2021 anticipated orders. That information is out there. And I have just given you a short snippet here. I hid some of the columns, so there is more available than you're seeing here. But what I really want to bring to your attention is that you have to plan out your menus, or this is a way that you can kind of look at. So let's say that on your cycle menu, you listed fresh fruit. Now, you can see that product that is listed on the September order form as far as fresh fruit, as far as fruit, sorry, is there's some strawberry cups that are there, there's some mixed berry cups that are there. This is where the orange juice is. I'm not sure if this was the only place that I saw orange juice being offered. So there's blueberries. So, think about blueberries. There's no reason that you can't offer your kids blueberries as part of that breakfast meal. It's a great opportunity. Mix those with either another fresh fruit if you want, or some pears, and sprinkle them over the top of a canned pear, or with fresh pears. So find ways that you can creatively use some of these items. Give the kids some variety, give them some of the exposure to some of these food items. Also listed on that page is the food distribution calendar. So you can see that the September order opened up yesterday. So for those of you that are thinking that you need to get an order placed, you're right, you do. You have just this week to get that done. But this also is something that you can print out, keep by or on your desk, so that you know when you should be placing your orders. Oh, yes.
In the chat, they said when you turn, they're losing you because you're actually talking into that computer.
This one?
You up,
oh.
You
Okay, so I need to be talking to this computer.
Yes.
Oh,
correct.
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm so sorry, you guys. And I have a loud voice that carries, so when you tell me that you can't hear my voice, we have got a problem. So thank you for letting me know that. So one thing that I want to point out to you, and I know you know this, but sometimes it just doesn't click with me, and which is why I made this slide. So keep in mind, when you order food in August, you receive it in September. Now, when can you actually use it in September? Some of you get a week 1 delivery. If you're like Rapid City or Lee Deadwood or some of those, we got a week 3 delivery. So we typically were not able to utilize any of the food we got in until the following month. So we really had almost a 2-month delay in when we were able to utilize that food. So food that I would order in August, I would not put on until my October menu. Food that I ordered in September did not go on until November. So again, this is another reason that I am strongly encouraging you to make sure that you are not one of those people who is taking your entitlement dollars, dividing it by 9, and thinking that you're going to use it evenly throughout the school year. You really want to use that money up just as quickly as possible, and so that it does all get utilized.
Someone asked, will the slides be available?
I think the slides will be available. I have no problem sharing those slides, and so I think Andrea will figure out how to get those, or we'll send them out to the participants or something. Andrea will follow up with you on that piece. So, all right, we are going to just take a 5-minute break before we get into talking about lunch and lunch menus and cycle planning for that. So come back and join us in, like I said, 5 minutes. Let's move into talking about, oh, it was going so well until I switched computers, and now why do I not?
Oh, did you unplug something?
I did not think I unplugged anything. And, but why am I stalled? Stop share. No.
Oh, you're okay. Everything is okay on my end.
Okay. Oh, I know why. Because where did my, God, here it is. Da, 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 da. Ha. Okay, let's talk lunch. Again, we are looking at the meal pattern, nothing new or different there. Just want to point out that we'll be doing that there will be minimum and maximums that we're going to have to consider. Again, I'm going to push you, just as we discussed earlier, I want you, that rule of thumb, to use at least one USDA donated food item. And really, honestly, as you're writing that, I would go ahead and you'll notice that I highlighted in yellow. That's oftentimes how I do it, either with the highlighter if I'm doing this with paper and pencil, or on my computer. I'll highlight the USDA donated food items so that I know indeed that I at least have one on my menu every day. And again, you really want to work to include 2 to 3 donated food items per menu. It was about 2 or 3 years ago. It's probably, I'm getting old, and so it's probably been longer than that. But I'm going to say it's 2 or 3 years ago that I was at a national conference. School Nutrition Association had a national conference, and I went to a class on cycle menu planning, and that's where I got this information. I'm like, that is so smart. That is just so brilliant, because we all struggle to spend that money. And so really strategically finding a way to put a food item on each of your menus makes a huge difference. Again, here we are, cycle lunch menu template. This is nothing new or different. Paper, pencil, Word, Excel, you can do that. Notice now on the left-hand side, I've got the cycle week, and then I list the meat alternate. I do put down 2 spaces for grain, only because, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. I do 2 spaces for veggies. You could do 2 spaces for fruit. I typically just put 1. Maybe if I was having to write a a menu for COVID, I would put that down knowing that since salad bars are probably a thing of the past, at least for this year, that I make sure that I get that for my high school students. And then I just pre-put the milk information in there. So the school lunch pattern, again, I've just highlighted in blue the meat alternate requirement according to grade group. Weekly, remember you have daily and weekly requirements. Same thing with the grains, daily and weekly requirements. Just going to highlight that at the high school level, that is 2 ounces daily, where at the K-8 level is only 1. And then of course, our favorite, the vegetable component and the wonderful subgroups. And so we've got that planning to take care of. So thinking about when you start to write a cycle menu, and again, I usually typically look at the center of the dinner plate, and that's where I start menu writing. So in the chat, I want you to list at least one entree item. You can list more than one, but what has to be on your menu? What are some surefire things that have to be on your menu? And I want you to put that information in the chat box. So let's see that chat box fire up and tell me what has to be there. What one thing has to be on the menu. I'm thinking entrees. So what are the kids' favorites? Chicken nuggets, tacos, chicken fajita, popcorn chicken, pizza, walking tacos, spaghetti, pizza, tacos, hamburgers. Yes, what else? Anything? Cheeseburgers. Cowboy beans, interesting. It makes it easy to get that legume requirement met. Pizza and wildcat chicken, is that what that was called? That is a great menu item writing there for that. So, all right, keep sharing those. So here's what I've done for the cycle. For that first one, I've got some of what you have listed. There's a cheeseburger, there's chicken nuggets, and walking taco, double stuffed pizza, corn dog on a stick. Now, I did not see necessarily anybody put corn dog on a stick. And so that is one of those items where it can be student preference, it can be sometimes a placeholder. I always put a placeholder for a not as popular food down so that I can, because that's probably it, that may be the day that I use to add variety to my menu, and we're going to talk about how we do that. One thing, and you know this because there's so many of you that are doing this cycle menu, just because you have these particular food items slated for that doesn't mean that there's not ways to mix some of that up. So that cheeseburger that we've got there, how many different ways can we do something with the hamburger patty? How many ways can we do something different with chicken nuggets? So we're going to talk about some of that. I also, at this point, write down that grain item. So obviously with a cheeseburger, I'm going to have it on a hamburger bun. I'm going to count the breading on the nuggets. I'm going to have some kind of a Dorito type chip for that walking taco. I'm going to use the crust off the pizza for my grain, and I'm going to have the breading on the corn dog as part of my requirements for the week. I have to have something offered in a full 1 ounce component and 2 ounce component if I'm doing high school. And then I have to fill in on that second line with additional grains so that I can meet my grade group requirements. So you see what that looks like. Here is my week 2. Again, cheese pizza, a deli combo sub, hot dog on a bun, tangerine chicken patty on a bun. I've listed the grains. One thing that I want you to note is these menus right here could turn into remote meals fairly quickly, right? So the cheeseburger on a bun could be wrapped in foil. It could be and sent home to students. That hamburger patty could be put in a plastic bag along with a slice of cheese. The hamburger bun could be sent home in a separate bag, and there could be directions on the cheeseburger using a little label that says heat to 140 degrees, and I'm assuming this is a cheeseburger that's already fully cooked. Chicken nuggets, same thing. We could put those chicken nuggets in a baggie, and those could be sent home, and they could be warmed up in the microwave or in the oven. Taco meat could be put into a souffle cup. The cheese could be put into a souffle cup. So this is a menu that has all hot food on it that could be turned into a menu that could be sent home to students, menu items, food items that could be sent home to students if you have to quickly switch from cafeteria or classroom service to remote service. Again, you've got your pizza, your deli combo sub. Obviously, that's turkey and ham slices and a slice of cheese. Hot dog, the tangerine chicken, or your chicken with orange sauce, if you will, and a chicken patty on a bun. So those are all things that really, so look at your menu as you've got it planned and go, okay, is this something that could potentially turn into something that I could serve remotely pretty quickly? A lot of schools, they at the very beginning of when we went remote, schools nationwide serve so much sandwich meat and sandwiches, and the kids really got tired of it. So that's where they had to then start serving and sending home some items that students could warm. Again, that's why we've run into the issue with the Uncrustables. And think about it, the Uncrustables, this was in March that we went remote, and we had April and May, and then the summer. So you know that the number of meals that we're going to start serving in September is not going to be anything. September, October, November, those are big feeding months. So that's why I'm telling you that I feel like food supply could be an issue. And so you're going to want to, have some less options, because it may help with less substitutions for you. All right, so we get into our vegetables, that section. So when you write the There is no right or wrong way for putting your vegetable information in there. So I sometimes will just list, as you can see, that what I've done for cycle week 1 here is I put the placeholder so I don't forget. So you can see I've got a 1/2 cup of red orange and a 1/4 cup red orange. Now keep in mind, this week 1 cycle menu are for K-8. And so if it was for 9/12, we know that we have to have larger servings of the red orange veggies. And I have to look and see the dark green. No, dark green is still a 1/2 cup, but our red orange goes up to 1 1/4 cups. And then, so that red orange is the only one. But sometimes I also know that, for instance, I'm going to serve potato coins with chicken nuggets because that's just what I do. With the walking taco, I'm going to serve refried beans and I'm going to have salsa. So I've met my bean legume requirement, and I'm going to count my salsa as part of my red orange component for the week. Double stuffed pizza, I'm going to do a salad there. Now, obviously the salad there is, unless I serve an entire cup of salad, I would have a 1/2 cup of, I could count that as a 1/2 cup. Most likely I would do it as a 1/4 cup there, and I would add a 1/4 cup of dark green somewhere else as well. But you get the idea where you can either put it in as the actual food item, or you can put the placeholder of the specific subgroup of vegetable that you want to serve. This slide just shows the different subgroups of vegetables that fit into the categories. And again, here is the cycle week menu for week 2 that I've done. One thing I'd point out is this chow mein noodle happens to have a 1/4 cup, or contributes a 1/4 cup of vegetable from the noodles. I can't remember what's in it right now, but it did. I added that there. Again, looking for my legumes component, getting my red orange in, that sort of thing. And I forgot, and I messed up here. I should have had this should have been fruit here and another 1/4 cup of veggies up here. Again, always trying to keep in mind so that you're making sure that you're hitting your 3/4 cup of vegetable and 1/2 cup of fruit with every daily menu running up and down. JoJo's are a potato wedge. I want to, when you write your menu, excluding meeting meal pattern components, what are some of the things that you consider? And there might be a prize or two for a couple of $5 Starbucks cards to the person who writes, the first 2 people who write in the chat box what things that you consider besides meal pattern components when you are menu writing. So go.
Okay, we have kid preferences, workload and student preferences, weather, think of the children, calories and sodium, school activities, not having the same kinds of buns in a week.
Okay. Not still looking for what I'm looking at. So again, think about the specific foods. Think about when you have sat through a menu writing course in the past, what types of things, when you're putting a daily menu together, what are you considering? Not there yet. I'm seeing availability. Oh, there it is. Amanda Riley, color and texture. Having different kinds of meat. TJUHEME, having different kinds of meat each week. Yes. What else have you got for me? Oh, what was that, Amanda who? Riley?
Amanda Riley.
Okay. Who else has? All right. So this is really the old school. So, you know, you're looking for color, you're looking for texture, you're looking for consistencies. You're talking about making sure that beef and pork are between perhaps chicken meals. You're looking at prepping food that is age appropriate for the kids. So how about instead of serving a whole apple for elementary, we're looking at doing sliced. We're looking at things that typically go together: spaghetti and a breadstick, fish and chips, chili and a cinnamon roll. That was always one. I know that's not with every school, but how many times have you put together a meal and served it to the kids and went, oh my gosh, everything is white, but it was all their favorites. It was mashed potatoes, it was pears, it was maybe turkey gravy and a dinner roll. Everything was all kind of a white brown mix. So looking and it's kind of mushy. Mashed potatoes, you know, you can swallow those without chewing. A pear you could almost, especially if it's a can, I'm thinking of a canned pear. So those are things that you really want to consider when you are writing those menus. There's so many things that you have to consider. It's not easy. You know, look at things that are in, you know, one of the things that maybe you would say, this really isn't maybe a fabulous way, is that look at, so chicken nuggets are brown and in circles. Potato coins are brown and in circles. The dinner roll is brown and is rectangular. So the only real color that we're looking like at on this particular menu, is the, is that red orange vegetable. So no doubt I might take a look at that particular menu and think, yeah, maybe I want to do something a little different with that, because it just ends up, now great finger food if that's what you're looking for, and sometimes that's important, but I just want you to go back and because sometimes we just get so focused on writing the menu that we forget to actually look and visualize and see what that looks like in our minds. So, all right, let me get back up to that. And then of course, with our fruit component, things that are gonna look different this year than in the past is that you won't have a salad bar, and it may not be safe to have a salad bar, and so you need to think about what that's going to look like. And so again, but think about displaying the food attractively. You know, here we've got a half an orange and we've got some kiwi slices, and they have pre-dish that so that you could hand that to the students. If you're going to do fresh fruit, obviously you're going to need to dish that, hand them that fresh fruit. This reminds me of back, and I'm going to date myself now, back in the early 90s when I was in the Artesian Lecture, or the Artesian School, and then it became Artesian Lecture School District. But that's how we, you know, we dished everything for the student. They went through and they told us what they wanted, and we dished it for them. And so this is kind of taking a step back in time, and I think that's a lot of what it's going to look like this year.
Someone said our salad bars up to each school to decide.
Oh, absolutely, yes. Salad bars are certainly up to each. A lot of times, you know, I've also heard of where, you know, you just have to be really thinking though about how many people are going, how are you going to handle people touching the ladles or the spoons? That's the big problem with it, is that it's not the food on the salad bar. That's not, you know, that is not as well. There's, you know, some safety issues with that, but more of it is about touching the utensils.
And they said they talked about having one staff serve kids a limited salad bar.
Yes, so having somebody at the salad bar that is dishing the items that the student requests is a great way to handle that if you have the staffing and the time for that. And so I love that idea. Some of us, that, you know, it just may not be an option at every school.
Someone they said, I still haven't heard back from DOH on whether we need gloves or hand sanitizer is acceptable at salad bars.
Okay, so yeah. Yeah, Department of Health is obviously going to be, the CDC or Department of Health is obviously going to be the ones that you listen to, and not me when it comes to any kind of the food safety piece. But they will be able to give you great guidance. But again, you just want to take extra precautions if you, on how a salad bar might work. So great conversation around that. We're going to keep moving on. One thing that I want to talk about is, I talked to you about forecasting the amount of food that you're going to need, and starting with the school calendar. So what I do is I take the school calendar, and again, you know, your school calendar is out there. I identify cycle week 1, cycle week 2, cycle week 1, cycle week 2, and I do that for, just don't get caught and forget that you've got 2 more days here on the end of September and the beginning of October. That makes cycle week 2, and then 1 and 2 and 1 and 2, and then I completely skip. Then we just happen to be off a full week in November, so I just skip that one. Depending on what your school does, you may or may not have, you know, a part of a week of school. But that's the first step, is to identify the weeks that you will be serving that particular cycle menu. Now, obviously, if you are going to do more than a 2-week cycle, you identify the number of weeks that you are serving, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, depending on what that looks like. But I go through and do that for the entire school year. Then this is just how unscientifically I do this. So I go back over here in September, because that's where I started cycle week. I write Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I do cycle 2, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then I just go through week by week and make a little stick for a menu that's going to be served on that day. Now, let's go back and look at, for instance, when it's in this scenario, the color coding here means that there's no meals on Monday and Tuesday. All right, so then, and that's where this is right here. So cycle week 2, Monday and Tuesday, then you're going to see, I obviously don't put the sticks down, and I'll put it down for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I also, when it comes to May, the last 2 weeks of school, I always just do Cook's Choice. So I stop planning for a full cycle week sometime in May. Sometimes I've done it at the end of April as well. Just kind of depends, but in this particular scenario, I've taken it through the second week of May. So I've gone through, identified whether I'm serving a meal each day when I'm not, and then I've taken my little sticks here and changed that into actual numbers. So you can see that on cycle week 1, Mondays, I have 16 Mondays, I have 17 Tuesdays, 16 Wednesdays, 15 Thursdays, and only 12 Fridays. So if for some reason you put hamburgers on this Friday and you were planning to use commodity hamburgers, it's no wonder that you're not using as many as you planned, because you don't have school nearly as many times. Same thing with cycle week 2. It ends up that on Monday, we have many less days of school. And of course, this is not, you know, we can't take into account, are we going to have snow days and all of that sort of thing. This is just what we know now to be true.
Someone said, how do you do Cook's Choice and know if it is going to fit into calories and sodium?
Great question. We're going to get there, so hang on. I also want you to find the information that you need to calculate your average daily participation. That's another piece that we need for this. So you know that you take, in order to calculate your average daily participation, you're going to take the number of meals that you served in a month, divide that by the number of operating days, and you're going to get an average daily participation. Now, granted, that's not going to take into account favorite days. So maybe your count is so much higher on the day that you have chicken nuggets and much lower on the day that you have a hot dog. But this just kind of gives you a rule of thumb, if you will, to help you with your forecasting. It's guesstimating, it really is, but it's something. So let's take a look now at, I've taken now cycle week 1, cycle week 2, I've put in the number of serving days that I got based on that previous slide where I was counting through the year, how many times I'm going to be serving this menu. And I've noted that my average daily participation is over here at 200. So that means I take 16 serving days, I take that times 200, and that means forecasting, guesstimating that for the year, I'm going to need about 3,200 cheeseburgers. I'm going to need about 3,400 servings of chicken nuggets. You can see where we've got those listed, all right? Same thing down here for week 2. We've got the number of serving days, and we've got the number of food items or servings that we potentially may use. Now, does this take into account offer versus serve or any of that? No, absolutely not. It's just giving you a guesstimate mostly for the main entree, since most of our students do choose the main entree when they have offer versus serve. So this is the part where it comes in, where it's so handy to, when the survey comes out for USDA donated foods, when that survey comes out in February, you can go back and use this potentially as a forecasting tool to at least give you a guesstimate of how much food you may be wanting to order, instead of just having to say, I don't know, and just plop a number down. The more we do this, the better we get at it, and then the more accurate it becomes, and then that just helps the state out then being more accurate in ordering food as well. Now let's put this into real life, and here's our cycle menu. I've identified the USDA donated food items here, and let's just take actually a look at this cycle week 1. All right, let's look at variety. We have beef, we have chicken, we have beef, we have cheese, and we have probably beef and chicken. So are we happy with that? We might also want to take a look at the price of corn dogs and the popularity of corn dogs and the popularity of double stuffed pizza and the cost of that. So that's going to help you decide, do I want to leave these where they're at, or do I want to change them around? What is going to make the most sense for my program? Is that going to be fiscally responsible for me to, how is that going to make the most sense dollar-wise and according to what our students like? Let's look at this second week. The second week's a little bit more of a mess. So if it were me, depending on what's going on, that tangerine chicken, while it's a favorite of students, and it is a USDA donated food dollar item, if you remember the cost of that when we were looking at the, what was it? It was less than $17 a case that we were going to use. So you might want to consider putting that over onto because it was a very expensive item and we didn't use up all that much dollars. So maybe we want to put that over there. Maybe we want to, our deli combo sub, using turkey ham and turkey slices, which are USDA donated food items, maybe we want to move that to a day where we're going to have more opportunity to serve that meal. So those are decisions that you just have to look at once you put this information into place. Again, no right or wrong, but what it does do for you is if you had something like chicken nuggets. Now, here's a USDA donated food item. It's chicken nuggets, and it's being served a lot. Perhaps we'll burn through a lot of money this way. Again, it's a processed item, so maybe not as much. If you're making your own beef taco meat using the ground beef, this is a great place for this to be, and maybe you want to move it over so that it's the highest number of meals that you're serving, since this is where you're going to get your biggest bang for your buck is using ground beef. So those are just things that you need to look at. Is there questions on that? All right. So one thing that I want to spend a little time talking about, and where are we at the time? Okay, we're getting close. Is Buy American. So that is a requirement for menu planning. It has to be made in the USA. In the beginning, when the President Truman signed the document for School Lunch Act, that we needed to buy American, and that has not changed. Now it's just in a lot more of the gobbledygook and federal regulation jargon that we're used to seeing. So know that Buy American, it's an ag commodity or product that's produced in the U.S. and that it has to be substantially processed in the U.S. And food products from Guam, American Samoa, U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and the Northern Mariana Islands are considered domestic. Here is sample language that you want to have in your procurement document so that your distributor understands that you are going to be doing Buy American, that you have a Buy American requirement. You can tell them, but it's best to have it in a written document. So what I want you to do when you get back to your schools is I want you to take a walk in your dry storage area, and I want you to really take a look at some of your items. So, and I know these are hard to see on your screen, so you're going to have to trust me. But here's jalapeno peppers. This does say product of USA. You'll find a lot of them that aren't. These black olives, they're a product of Egypt. The pancake and waffle syrup, I couldn't find anything on it. Couldn't find it to save my soul. Here is a product that says product of USA. A blended canola oil, this was product of Canada. Here's some things that gets, here's one product of China. Here's one that was made in the USA. Here's one, sometimes all you see is distributed by. That means nothing, just so you know. Distributed by is just where it was distributed by. I mean, that is not count as, oh, then it was a Buy American. That is not what that means. Unless you see a product of or made in the USA or product of China, product of USA, that's what you're looking for. You're not looking for distributed by information. Now go in your cooler. This is the one that's really going to get you. So here's some lemons, product of, we don't know, nobody checked it. And there was nowhere on there that told us. Here's one, product of USA, good. Here's one, product of USA, great. Now, so here's those lemons and we don't know what to do with them. Sometimes you'll see, so the next thing to do is to maybe go check an invoice. So, and I apologize, this invoice is crappy. And so sorry, but here's what it says. The lettuce, this invoice says that it was lettuce, romaine chopped, and it was a product of USA. Good. This says grapes, green seedlets, product of Mexico. You'll notice that Mexico is circled on the invoice. Here's cucumbers. Mexico is circled on the invoice. And the tomatoes had nothing. They didn't say anything. So now we'd have to go back to see if the box told us anything. So what do we have to do when we find things that do not meet the Buy American requirement? So there's limited exceptions to this Buy American requirement. A food is not produced or manufactured in the U.S. in sufficient and reasonable available quantities. So say that the orange is frozen in Florida, and so now oranges there's a shortage. Or when you check the price of an item and the cost of U.S. food is significantly higher, then you can purchase the non-domestic food. I will tell you that I had it in writing that if the cost was greater than 10%, then my rule of thumb was that I was going to buy a non-domestic food. So it's just good to have that in your procurement plan so that that's your standard and that you can show that, my goodness sakes, to buy apples, US apples was $50, to buy them from Mexico was $20, and so that's why you chose to purchase them from Mexico. So what happens when you're unable to follow the Buy American requirement? It's a government program. So of course that means there's paperwork. So you have to fill out the Buy American certification. And where are you going to find that? On the CAN's website, under procurement, and it says Buy American certification. And here's what a completed Buy American certification form looks like. So we've listed the items. Why, is it that pineapple, for instance, falls under number 1? There's not sufficient amount grown in the United States, so that's why we bought it from Mexico. Number 2, we bought the kiwi from China because the price was so much better. And then you have to get the distributor to sign off on this information. Is it a pain? Yes. Is that how the government wants it to be? Yes. Why? Because they want you to buy American. Do you have to do this for every food, every time? Yes. That's all I'm going to say. Zoom poll 2. All right, Megan is going to put up our next Zoom poll. Let's see what you know about Buy American. So here's the questions. The Buy American requirement is new. The Buy American requirement is seen as a way to safeguard the health and well-being of our nation's children. And my invoice, I've got to see if I can, my invoice, well, you can see the question. So answer those questions and we'll see how we did. All right, 7 of 25. Oh, come on, guys. I know we're not getting graded. I promise there's no grade. Nobody's gonna flunk. Nobody's gonna know. Few more of you just take a stab at it. See what. See what you. 14. Okay, just a couple more of you. Getting to the end. Give it a stab. All right, who's going to be the 15th person? Oh, there you go. Good job. Good job. Oh, there's 17. Oh, look at you guys. What a bunch of rock stars. All right. All right. Oh, look at that. All right. So let's go ahead and end the polling. And so let's see what you answered. So it says the Buy American requirement is new. No. You got that right, 17% of you. It's been around since the inception of the child nutrition programs. The Buy American requirement is seen as a way to safeguard the health and well-being of our nation's children. Yes, that's true. And I can't see on my calendar how the polling came out.
Oh, number 3, 61 yes, 39 no.
So the 61% was correct. Yes, food and food products from Guam, American Samoa, U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and the Northern Mariana Islands are considered domestic. And we talked about that in one of the earlier slides. So good job, good job. So thank you so much for participating in that. All right, so let's just talk a little bit about variety. So we're going to end up doing this in a chat box because we are running out of time. But what I want you to do is pick one of these food items and tell me how you would use this 3 different ways. All right, so let me help you out with a hamburger patty. So if I'm going to do a hamburger patty, I am going to put different toppings on them. For instance, I'm just going to serve it as a hamburger on a bun for one thing. Secondly, I'm going to put different toppings on them. And this is something we experimented with last year. We put mac and cheese on the top of it and called a mac and cheeseburger. We put some barbecued pulled pork and a few onion straws on top of the hamburger and called it a Kansas City burger. It's a great way to use up sometimes some of your odds and ends. So because you're not putting a full, like when you did the mac and cheeseburger, we didn't put the full serving amount on there. We just put a tablespoon or 2 on there. So, oh good, Lisa Anderson, look at you guys. Especially, yeah, the taco meat one is a great one. And again, a great opportunity to use ground beef and use it in numerous ways that the kids like. And they don't really necessarily think that they're eating the same food item, but they are. So tell me how would you use the chicken nuggets, the chicken salad with chicken nuggets. Yep, that's one way. What's a couple other ways to use that chicken nugget? Again, you've got the chicken nugget on your menu. It's on there as a placeholder. Does it mean that you have to serve exactly the KFC chicken bowl in a wrap? You guys are, yes, absolutely. You guys are rock stars. This is, you have so got this figured out. That is key to setting variety and to your menus. Gives you that flexibility that you're looking for. And typically when we were talking about, somebody asked a question about calories and sodium, you know, you just need to kind of come up with the general in the general range. So we didn't quite get through all of this, but what I do want to know now is what was the most useful thing that you took away from this presentation? We are here with about 2 minutes left, and if you would just share that information in the chat box, I would really appreciate it. And also any other questions that you may have that I can answer in about 90 seconds. So light that chat box up so that I can have feedback on how to improve this, or the one thing that you took away from it that will be most helpful. Weekly requirements and how to use donated foods. Different ideas. What else do you have? As you're finishing, good, I'm glad some of you found the 2-week cycle menu to be useful information. I know that just seems really, really hard for us, because I will tell you, at one time I had a 6-week cycle menu. And so doing 2 weeks just seems wrong to me. But I would really like you to give it a stab and see how it goes. As things settle down and we do, and we get into the swing of things and it's going okay, we can always make it longer. So I want to thank you. I don't know, Megan, are you just going to shut us down, or how does this happen? I guess I am. I was going to see if we could capture the chat box as well.
We can go ahead and we'll just switch over to our new.
It is 9:59 at 10 o'clock. So thank you for your attention, and have a good school year.